Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Do you ever have one of those days where you just get like a crazy craving and you just can't get it out of your head?
Yeah, I've had those days.
So
what was yours
today? Well, and I get to work. I'd already had breakfast, but I'm sitting there,
and you think,
and all of a sudden I'm just like
octopus brain.
Yes, exactly. No, I was just absolutely needing to eat a breakfast burrito.
We had those for dinner.
Well, yeah, and that's because they're brilliant.
Tonight,
they're awesome.
Just tonight. What is the coincidence that you would have a craving for the thing that we ate? Maybe we're somehow connected.
I think so. That must be it.
Psychic
Well, so I
burrito
went on
connection.
thinking about these burritos all day long, and at lunchtime I had to find a place. Like I was desperately searching for a place that actually still was selling their breakfast burritos at lunchtime, because a lot of the places stopped selling them.
Because
after breakfast.
a gentleman does not burrito
Right.
after the morning.
And so I found a great place that's actually all burritos all the time, which was fantastic. I could guarantee that they would have what I was craving. And so I went and I got 2 burritos because I just was having that much of a craving. And so I pounded one down for lunch, and then I started eating the other half, and then I saved the rest of it, and I finished that one for dinner. And it was just like a perfect day of breakfast burritos.
Wow.
One of those weird things.
Wow. I love that. And I find it a little odd, given where you live, that you don't eat more of the burrito, breakfast or otherwise.
Oh, I eat plenty of them.
Do you?
I do.
All right. Well, I guess
It's
that's
great to have breakfast burritos. Like, they're a great breakfast for set, because you can cut them in half and everyone can just kind of grab one and walk and work while they're eating a breakfast burrito. It's perfect.
a breakfast for working on set of like a film. Is that what you mean? That's not what I heard.
What did you hear?
I heard it was breakfast for something else.
Oh, God.
You want to tell the people where we're from?
Where are we from?
Hey, everybody. I think my voice just broke. Hey, everybody, this is The Next Reel. I'm Pete Wright, and that there is Andy Nelson.
Hey!
And we spoil movies tonight on the show. The first in our mystery series with Stephen Gaghan's 2005 petroleum thriller, Syriana. Before we get into that, though, you should learn more about us at thenextreel.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Next Reel. And if you're interested in the study of the Instagramification of the lower middle-class American teen, you'll want to follow the inspiring work of our authors at Instagram.com/thenextreel and play the Instagram hashtag Pony Prize, hashtag Academics Are Hot, hashtag Guess the Movie Challenge. Andy, how did we do against the fold this week?
This was it was a good week. I mean, good old Stephen Smart pulled a 1958 Western from Anthony Mann out of his hat, Man of the West, which I hadn't seen before, and it certainly threw a lot of speculation out there. And it took, I think it was day 4 that somebody finally got it, and I believe that person was Soda Pop Rocker. Soda Pop Rocker somehow. The image of the train pulling up to the little water tower.
Because there has never been another film with trains and water
Western
towers and pulling up in the West.
Exactly.
Man,
and so, yes, Soda Pop Rocker.
That is so good.
I know.
How does that happen?
It's like Cameron Ryan with these,
architecture.
The Firm. That's the house that Tom Cruise was from. How on earth? So anyway, congratulations, Soda Pop Rocker. You are entered to win the 2015 Pony Prize.
That is awesome. Andy, it's time. Let's do trailers.
Mine is called Faults. And Riley Stearns is directing it. I've never heard of Riley Stearns, but this film looks really interesting. It looks like just a really funny, dark, psychological thriller sort of film. I really love what they're doing with it. It's been kind of a festival film playing all year. It opened at South by Southwest last March, and it's been kind of slowly playing around the world at different festivals. And it's going to be opening March 6th this year. I don't know. It seems like maybe it's a limited release type of film, but I don't know. All I know is it looks really, really interesting. Leland Orser, who I think he kind of came to fame as the guy who was subject to one of John Doe's tortures in Seven.
Yes.
And ever since then, we talked about him in Seven and in Alien Resurrection because he's just became known as this guy who could scream really well and had like great panics, and he does it so well in every film that he does it in. He's always so fun to watch. But this is like, I'm sure he's played bigger roles in some other films and stuff, but this is like a lead role carrying this film. And it's exciting for me to see him playing this guy who basically debunks these cult groups, and he's hired by this girl's parents because they fear that her daughter has been brainwashed by this religious cult, and they basically hire him to kidnap their daughter and deprogram her and go through this whole process of deprogramming. And from the trailer, it looks like it looks like frightening things happen. It looks like crazy and wild things happen. It just looks insane. Mary Elizabeth Winstead is the daughter who is sucked into this cult. And I don't know. The trailer had me laughing at a lot of it and also just kind of cringing at some of the crazy places where I'm expecting it to go. So I don't know what it's going to be like, but I'm quite looking forward to this one.
Me too. I can't remember. Did we see Lance Reddick in the trailer?
I don't think so. I mean,
it's funny that he gets some pretty high billing in this thing, and yet I don't feel like I even saw him in the trailer.
No, I don't. I really don't think he pops up in the trailer at all.
He's another of those actors.
Yeah, you see John Grease in the trailer.
Yep. And Beth Grant.
Yep, Beth Grant is mother.
Talk about a fantastic character actress.
Oh, yeah.
Who's everywhere. Anyway, I am also very excited about this film. I think it looks really, really interesting. I hadn't seen it until you sent me the trailer to check out, and I'm definitely in. That last sequence where, the slow pullout while he's beating somebody behind the mattress is
with his book,
with his own book. That's pretty intense. There's some pretty intense stuff in there. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it looks great. And Mary Elizabeth Winstead is always charming, but charming and clearly a little bit off her rocker in this film. She comes across as deeply intense.
She comes across as that was it Martha Marcy May Marlene sort of character. Mm-hmm. Like she comes across pulling that off quite well. This sort of same crazy cult belief she plays it pretty spectacularly, I think, in this, and I'm looking forward to seeing how she carries it through the whole film.
Absolutely agree. Very much looking forward to it. When does it come out, did you say?
March 6th.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Coming right up.
I know.
My trailer this week is another remake. I feel like I'm doing a public service, bringing these to the surface of our cinema conscience week after week, since it would appear there's clearly not enough ad money on the budget to do it without me.
No one else would ever hear about it.
Yeah, exactly right. The Man from U.N.C.L.E. is coming back after a 50-year hiatus of its TV run, this time adapted and directed by Guy Ritchie. U.N.C.L.E. stars Henry Cavill of Man of Steel fame and Armie Hammer, the lovable Winklevi twins from The Social Network. Along with Alicia Vikander, Hugh Grant, and possibly even David Beckham. Dare to dream. Looks gritty, and suave. What do you think?
Don't forget the Cannibal King, Hugh Grant, pops up in there also.
That's what I said. I said Hugh Grant.
Did you say Hugh Grant?
I did say Hugh Grant.
I missed Hugh Grant.
Yeah, no, it's good to know that you listen to me, though.
And Jared Harris? Did you say Jared Harris?
Yeah, I said Jared. I'm sure I said Jared Harris. And I said everything else that you're about to say.
Did you say David Beckham?
Okay, here's the thing. I think Henry Cavill looks so much more interesting in this role to me than he does as Superman.
Here. I could not agree more.
I am really thrilled to see him in something not quite so constrained.
Yes.
Talk about, I'm very much looking forward to this film. I do love the films of the fine Guy Ritchie. I had an absolute blast with Sherlock Holmes, even the second one. And of course, we can't forget Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and Snatch. After U.N.C.L.E., he is also apparently taking on Knights of the Round Table King Arthur, a full-on revisiting of the Lancelot story. So I feel like I'm in for a twofer with Ritchie films in 2015 and 16. So Man from U.N.C.L.E. hits theaters in the U.S. August 14th. What'd you think?
It looks good. I agree with everything you said. I never, ever have seen this show, so I really have no expectations with it, which I think is probably good going into it. And Guy Ritchie is not one to hold back as far as feeling he needs to, necessarily stick with the original source material completely. I was not as much a fan of the Sherlock Holmes films as you were. I still enjoyed them, but I also found them fairly forgettable. But that doesn't mean I didn't enjoy them. So, I'm hoping this is one that I equally
just means you don't remember the experience of enjoying them.
That's right. What was that film again?
Well, I still think that I still am excited about it, especially after our film board episode this week. Talking about Kingsman, I feel like we're in for it for the British spy genre is coming back, and I'm excited about that. It's just nice suits. It's just films about nice suits.
Yes.
So there we go.
Excellent.
Beirut rules, Mr. Nelson.
Imagine 30% of America unable to heat their houses. Or gasoline $20 a gallon at the pump.
It's running out. And 90% of what's left is in the Middle East. This is a fight to the death.
I think we've got something that utilizes your specific skill set.
His money's in a lot of dark corners.
I want you to take him from his hotel, drug him, put him in the front of a car, and run a truck into him at 50 miles an hour.
It's good to have you back in town, Bob.
You want to know what the business world thinks of you? We think 100 years ago you were living out here in tents in the desert, chopping each other's heads off, and that's exactly where you're going to be in another 100. So, yes, on behalf of my firm, I accept your money.
It is illegal to offer gifts, money, or anything of value to influence foreign officials.
This is all business we're talking about, right?
You've just visited what could be the most profitable corporation in America.
Provided the government approves the merger.
Provided there's still chaos in the Middle East.
Do you understand what that means? It's like somebody put a giant ATM on our front lawn.
Corruption? Corruption is our protection. Corruption keeps us safe and warm. Corruption is why we win.
It's coming now. Take the target out.
Why am I being investigated? Why am I being investigated? Drop it. 4 miles.
Your entire career, you've been used.
2 miles. No. Where'd that job come from? Goodbye, Bob. 1 mile.
Syriana, Andrew. Syriana.
Oh, yes.
This film came out in 2005, written and directed by Stephen Gaghan, based on the book by Robert Baer, former CIA intelligence operative who knows something about such things. And he's a scary dude. Do you have a chance did you watch any of the videos of him talking about this and talking about the making of the movie?
I didn't, but I always find it funny when somebody like from the CIA who's sworn to secrecy on all this sort of stuff goes out and writes a book. Well, but even then, it's like you listen to Steve Gaghan talk about it, and it's just like he still tells that Bob Baer he can't tell any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And here he is trying to make amends for stuff that he's done in his past, but he can't tell it. But obviously he wrote a book about it. So what's in the book? And I haven't read it.
I haven't read the book.
It's like I mean, he's obviously telling some things. I mean, it's kind of a weird place.
It is a weird place. Watching it is funny. I think to your point, watching Stephen Gaghan talk about Bob Baer, it's a conversation watching Gaghan dance around himself because he can't talk about certain things that he knows about. So it's always a treat to watch them try to dance around this movie that they made, which clearly talks about things that probably happened in some way, shape, or form. So it's scary. Now you really enjoy this film, yes? If I recall, you are on the record.
I am on the record. I love this film.
You love this film. This is an official love film of yours.
It is a love film.
Well, I am very interested in hearing your love fest with this film. I don't love it. I don't hate it. But for me, you watch this film to get to the last 20 minutes. Everything leading up to the last 20 minutes is insufferably boring. I have such a hard time, and until there are a couple of isolated moments that I find are But this is a case. One of the things we talked about in the what was the movie we just did? The film board? No, film board.
Oh, Kingsman.
One of the things we talked about in Kingsman was this idea of how efficient parallel storytelling structure can be. And this movie really does it. It's the big trifecta of parallel storytelling structure. We've got 3 major storylines happening at the same time. And I think it does its best to be efficient, but each storyline is complex. It's complex with lots of characters, lots of names, lots of faces, and it requires a great degree of assimilation of events, and it takes so much work that it's really, for me, it's just exhausting to watch, with the exception of certain key elements I'm sure we'll talk about. Now, what I do find interesting, and I just want to get this out on the table, I didn't watch this film the first time I saw it. I didn't watch it in this light. This time, I really see this film as something of a story about fathers and sons. Mm-hmm. And I never really got that before, but I got it this time. And that made the intent of the film and the emotional heart of the film much more interesting for me to reflect on. And so I'm excited to hear about that. But just the general execution of the film, what I see on screen, I found really tough to get through, apart from the ultimately satisfying climax.
Interesting.
Interesting. Do go on.
Interesting, yes. No, I don't know. This is a film that just really clicked with me when I watched it. I know that a lot of critics, a lot of people, not just the critics, found it very confusing and very kind of difficult to follow because and I think it's actually like 5 storylines that we're following. I mean, there's quite a number of storylines that we're jumping back and forth across as and fairly quickly as the story progresses. We move from Tehran to Georgetown to Houston to Geneva to the Persian Gulf to Princeton to Spain to where else do they end up? There's some stuff in France. I mean, we're all over the world. I mean,
right. It's all over the place.
Yeah, this is a film that they shot this thing in was it 4 continents, 220 locations in 75 days and in 5 languages. I mean, it's an insane production. As a
producer,
yeah.
Is that like the brass ring of jobs for you?
Well, it certainly looks frightening. Like that just is incredibly daunting. Looking at that, it's like, wow. Let's see if we can find a way to
what would
thin
that spreadsheet? What would that spreadsheet look like, Andy?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, just even the conversions between all the different countries as you're traveling seems crazy. But, I think it was important for this film because this is a film that is talking about really kind of just like the oil trade in and around the world and just kind of the energy industry, not just those who are drilling it, but those who are buying it and those who are the political side of it, the people who work in it, the people who analyze it. You get all these different aspects of it and how it all ties together. And it ends up coming across as this, yes, I think that the story is a little complicated, although I don't think the intention was necessarily to try making it transparent for audiences. I actually think that the complicated story, the nature of it, is an integral part of the actual story because this is a fairly complicated web in the world of how all of this stuff is interrelated and decisions get made for reasons that aren't necessarily the right ones, but it's because of a certain political issue that somebody is dealing with, or because of a certain thing, like the whole issue with getting the new emir in place, and he agrees. The brother who is the rightful heir, the prince, he ends up not getting it because he is the one who wants to have progressive reform and wants to kind of change the direction of the country, but that's not what the United States wants, and so they back the younger brother, and there's just like all these different elements working together. And so I end up watching this film and I end up completely engrossed the whole time. I find all the plot elements very interesting. I love the way that they tie together. I love the way that Stephen Gaghan and his editor, Tim Squires, really worked together to cut back and forth through all of these different stories in a fairly complex way. The transitions from one to the next are they're pretty fast paced. It moves quickly. You don't necessarily get long scenes ever as you're in one place for a brief time, just to get enough information before you jump around the world to this other location to get more information. And
yet, remarkably, they do make it feel like they're much, much longer.
Well, the scenes, you mean? Well,
that was me being sarcastic. I was being sarcastic.
Yeah, for somebody who's bored by it, I guess. Yeah, and again, maybe it's just because I really get engrossed in this story, and I love the storytelling style of it. I mean, Gaghan wrote Traffic for Steven Soderbergh, and I think that was a masterful film as well. And also one that jumped around a lot between different stories. This one takes it even a step further, I think. And I don't know. I felt Gaghan really became a master at this type of storytelling. And you're right. I know it's not necessarily a story for everybody. It does get very complicated. Because of that, I think some people can kind of, their interest can wane as they're just kind of giving up on, I don't even know why I'm in this part of this world right now. How does this tie into anything that I've been seeing? When you're jumping around that fast, you're not necessarily giving your audience a lot of time to really connect with particular characters so that they can be drawn into the story in a stronger way, which I think is an important tool in telling a story and writing a script and making a film. You want to be able to get your audiences to identify with characters. And when you're doing it in such brief pieces, it can make that challenging.
I think it can make it challenging. I think the other issue may have to do with casting in some respects, right? The main characters that we follow in this film, and there are a lot of really A-line characters here. We've got, George Clooney, obviously, Christopher Plummer, Jeffrey Wright, Chris Cooper, Matt Damon. These are the main sort of characters that you sort of key on, right? These are the characters that you latch on to because you're more likely to know them. And they are sort of awash in so many other faces that are also important. And because of that, I find shifting, I feel like I'm supposed to follow the big names, but in many cases I'm not. I'm supposed to follow somebody else. I'm supposed to follow, I think sublimely talented Alexander Siddig, right? I think he's just really, really good, but he's not the movie star, but he has one of the more interesting sort of familial political storylines in this thing. And so it's sort of awash in sort of weird, I don't know who to follow casting. Now, your point about Traffic is well taken, although I thought that was just a better movie. And I enjoyed it. I followed it. I felt like I was interested in where it was going. I didn't have any of this trouble with the characters. I feel like I enjoyed it for all the reasons that I really wanted to enjoy this one.
Well, and something with Traffic that I think works and doesn't work in relation to this film is that Traffic looks at the different stories, but they don't necessarily tie together as directly. This one ties these stories, the 5 stories, much more directly, whereas Traffic, I believe, is only 3 stories. They're all related to the same topic, kind of the drug industry, but they aren't necessarily one story affecting the other story, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
so
no, I can see that.
So it becomes easier to kind of, okay, I can get into Michael Douglas's story as the senator and dealing with his daughter who's an addict, because it's a fairly straightforward story. Likewise with Benicio del Toro as he's trying to figure out how to do what's right as a cop from Mexico.
Yeah.
Each of the stories it's just a fairly straightforward story.
Are you sure?
My speaking clearly isn't straightforward.
But it is a straightforward story, but this one I think gets to your point, which is, when do you know when are you pushing it, a little bit too far? Structurally, as you're writing the script, when are you pushing it a little too far? Now, to the film's credit, they had to make some very difficult choices, I know, about introducing complexity and knowing when to rein it in, just because of the complexity of the story. This is an incredibly complex issue. And in fact, in order to really play it out, you really have to introduce and flesh out all these parties. You have to know about the merger of these two oil companies. You have to know about the legal team that is assigned to both defend and grease the skids for the Department of Justice to approve this thing. You have to know about the CIA operatives that are working in Beirut. You have to know about all of the elements that are coming together. Obviously, you have to know about the legal and economic advisors around the emir and the royalty in the local land. I get it. You have to know all of that stuff. It makes it just for a very demanding film, and it's one that I absolutely appreciate the artistry that goes into it. It's not one that I reach for when I want to really enjoy, enjoy a film.
Sure. No, and I can totally understand why some people would have a hard time with that, because it is complex. And it's just, and I'm not saying, people who don't enjoy this can't appreciate complex stories.
Yeah, because it's when it's complex versus complex and messy. And to me, it's messy.
And see, I don't feel it's messy. And maybe it's just because I click with the story. And I think I'm going to just give a lot of the weight of my appreciation of this film to that, in the fact that I really appreciate the way that this story was told. I really love everything about the script and love how it moves. I love the characters. I love the interactions. I love the casting. I love I just think everything was spot on perfect. For me, I think it all works really well for what I was wanting to get out of this film. And it really stands up. And every time I watch it, I'm just completely engrossed in every element of it. I love all these different characters as they move through it. And something that you brought up earlier, the nature of the fathers and sons, I think is a very interesting aspect to this story, and particularly the way that some of the tragic moments play out between the fathers and sons. And that is something that I hadn't even really noticed before this viewing either. So it's definitely something that I think can stand up as a film that you can find little things on repeat viewings. In fact, I think this is a film that repeat viewings actually help, because the first viewing can be a little complicated trying to figure out, wait, what's going on with this, with Connex Colleen, and how are they tied into this thing here? Yeah.
Well, I think I am certainly a testament to that. I mean, the fact that I even have this extra layer, like you say, of the father-son issue is a testament to that. I do enjoy that, and I think there are layers. There are layers within each of the parallel stories. Let's talk a little bit about the father-son stuff. We get a view of I think three generations or three parallel generations of fathers. The first one is Matt Damon. He's an attorney.
He's an
energy analyst, and he ends up getting the opportunity of a lifetime to go to a party at the emir's place. And while he's there with his family, his wife, played by the wonderful Amanda Peet, thank goodness she was in this film. She is like the emotional anchor of this film, this grieving mother. While they're at this party, the oldest of Brian Woodman and Julie Woodman's sons jumps into a pool, and the pool, underneath the water, there's a broken light, and so the water is electrified. And as soon as the son jumps into the water, he's electrified and killed. And so that
horrifying.
It is horrifying. It is really horrible. Particularly, I think for you and me both, we have sons of that sort of age, like young and innocent, and it really is. That's tough to watch as they go through the rescue and sort of grieving process. And so we watch the youngest, sort of the newest life, just snuffed out. And almost immediately we see there's a monetary value on that, which is $75 million. And there's a wonderful exchange in the desert where the emir and Matt Damon or the prince and Matt Damon are talking, and this comes out that, yes, we're going to give your company rights to this land at the price of $75 million. And it's clear that was it becomes clear that was essentially a what would you call that?
Reparations
yeah.
for the loss of their son.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're going to raise the house where they were having their party and turn it into a park. Mm-hmm. So
yeah.
That is a fairly gruesome sort of snuffing out of the value of family. And then we see the next one.
And also, just in relation to that, I find it interesting how, as the energy analyst, I don't think Matt Damon, I mean, yes, he analyzed kind of the energy situations going on in the world, but I don't think he was quite as willing to be so blunt before the death of his son.
Right.
And I felt that was a very interesting switch in his character after his son had died. And as the Prince Nasir would ask him these questions about, well, what would you do and stuff. I found it so interesting how Matt Damon as Brian Woodman just became so blunt with his answers and really just saying, laying it all out there as to this is it. And I found that so refreshing because normally there was so much politicking that you would get in situations like that. And this was just a guy just laying it out there, just saying, no, this is what it is, and this is why you're always going to be stuck in the same situation you are because this is what you're doing. And you're too blind to the fact that this is what's happening, and you're not ever going to get out of it.
I have a dear friend who lost a young son some years ago, and I had this very conversation with him not long ago, and it all boils down to, at least his reflection was, you're not when you've lost a child like that, you realize that you've experienced the most tragic form of loss and pain that you could experience. Like that is the very worst thing. And as you recover from that, his words, you lose all fear of speaking truth to power, because what else could you possibly take away from me? Mm-hmm. Right. And I agree with you. I thought Matt Damon's portrayal of that emotional twist was, for me, especially having had this sort of relationship with my friend, was right on. He just nailed it. I think you're absolutely right. He was not only was he never did he never shy away from saying what he needed to say, the way he said it with such shock. He was never afraid to say something as if it was as stupid as he heard it. You want to know why you're stuck in this position? Because you're a dumbass. That's why.
Exactly.
That's what I kept hearing as he opened his mouth, and I thought it was just great. I think Matt Damon, I really enjoyed watching him, and I think everybody in this film did an admirable job. Very believable.
Oh, yeah.
What about Clooney? He was a little plump around the middle. He put on some weight.
He put on some weight. He won an Oscar for this. He did a good job with his performance here. This was, and speaking of what we were just talking about, also another father-son relationship. This is one where he's really lost his relationship with his son. And did you recognize who is playing his son, by the way?
Oh, no. Who was playing his son?
It was Max Langella, who's also, is going back to Social Network. He popped up there.
That's right. How funny. I didn't even make that connection. Nice.
Yeah. He Clooney and his wife are both in the CIA as operatives, and they can't tell their son anything. And it's really, I mean, that is just, honestly, I don't know how a parent could ever put themselves in a situation where they actually are a spy and they just have to basically, as Clooney's son says, both my parents are professional liars, because they won't tell him anything. And I just don't know how any parent could put themselves into that situation where they always are going to have to lie to their own children. It's a terrible, terrible thing. And you can see how this life has really worn on Clooney. It's a very just a brutal life. And if anyone is really kind of playing the Bob Baer character, it's probably Clooney.
Oh, yeah.
And just kind of the stuff that he's getting involved in, kind of the dark stuff, going, to meet with the Hezbollah, the head of Hezbollah. And I don't know. I really enjoyed him in this film. I felt he brought a very world-weary but smart thinking sort of spy power to it. I really actually just enjoyed him completely in this film. He reminded me a lot of his character in particular. Reminded me a lot of Richard Burton's character from The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. Another spy who is very just kind of worn down with the realities of this spy world that they have to work in and how brutal it is.
So the loss in this case is actually the inverse, where we have the son who has the father and son whose relationship is clearly broken because essentially the son feels as if he is forsaken through a lack of just fundamental human honesty, and what that does to a family, how that breaks a family, and whereas we see Matt Damon's family is just torn apart because his young son is taken away. In this case, the son's father is taken away as Clooney is killed in the explosion at the end of the film, as he is trying to find some penance, I think, to stop this horrible thing that's going to happen, and he is just too late. And he is, even as he's trying to do the right thing, he is taken out of his family's life, which is the sort of the inverse of what we expect, but no less painful. Yeah,
absolutely.
And then we have the relationship between Jeffrey Wright and William Charles Mitchell, the attorney.
Right.
What's our take on this one?
He does a great job. He is always this just very quiet sort of character. I'm waiting for Jeffrey Wright to play a role where he is just a wild and crazy guy.
Right.
Because even, he brought the same gravitas to
James
his James Bond character.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, he's just, and geez,
and
if
the Hunger Games. And...
he's just always is kind of very, very quiet, and Felix Leiter, geez, in back in the Timothy Dalton days was getting married and jumping out of airplanes. So he takes everything into this very serious place, which, it works really well in context here. I think there's that great line that Christopher Plummer has with him where he's just like, at my firm, I have a flock of sheep who think they're lions. Maybe you're a lion everyone thinks is a sheep.
Exactly. Which takes me right back to his performance as Colin Powell in W. It was that same sort of sense.
Yeah. He does that really well here as this attorney who's working for these oil companies as they try to merge. And there's, as a character that you think you can kind of attach to because there's this interesting relationship he has with his father. His father is just basically a homeless drunk, really, and he has to he always ends up on his doorstep, and Jeffrey Wright has to take care of him, or he gets calls from bars that need him, Jeffrey Wright, to come pick his father up. There's this interesting humanity to the character that I think lends a lot of power to writing a character like that, because otherwise this is a character that really you're probably not going to like very much. He's this lawyer who basically is willing to and is hired purposefully to dig up dirt on people in order to convince his government connections to let this merger go through. Not the sort of person that generally you like very much, because it's that lobbyist mentality that just you see it in House of Cards, and you just it makes you so frustrated.
Yeah, that's right. To that point, though, one of the things I like so much about it is his rather contentious relationship with his boss. Christopher Plummer is sort of the head of this firm, and it clearly has the deck stacked in his favor no matter who wins, right? No matter who comes out, their firm is going to be in great shape. And I think that's so much of what this film is a commentary of from the legal aspect is even so much as Gaghan says, I try not to have a moral objective when I do these films. There's a moral objective in the story he's telling about these mergers and acquisitions and the people who play the part. He's none too subtle about the adaptation of this work.
Well, I would say he's not really playing a political side, but certainly it does feel like he's sticking it to the corporate mentality.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly my point. So in the end, I'm left sort of considering Jeffrey Wright's performance as Bennett Holiday, which is, of the three father-son relationships, his is the one that where when the film ends, we're left on a note of hope. And there isn't a lot of hope in this film.
No, there isn't.
Of all of the sort of rescues, of all of the, what are you doing, old man? The sort of contentious fights between him and his father, at the very end of the film, it's an open door after all. He lets his father into his house. And I think that is, for me, that is part of what I love so much about the redemption of these last 20 minutes, is that we see all three of these stories play out. We see Matt Damon returns home to his other son and his wife who need him, who have that hole in their lives. We see the resolution of the broken family of George Clooney and his work and what that has done as he is lost in the final assassination. And we see the redemption that comes from Jeffrey Wright with his father. And I really I like that sort of that it's the trinity. Of those relationships.
Yes, although you are leaving out two other father-son relationships.
Yeah, I don't really care about any of the other ones, though. You're right, I am. But I still like Trinity, because how often do you say Trinity?
Right, exactly. Quintilogy. It doesn't work quite as well. But yeah, I mean, Prince Nasir and his father, obviously there's an important relation. And his younger brother, I can't remember what his name is, but the other prince.
Yeah.
There's an interesting relationship going on there, as the two sons are really kind of trying to play the father in order to get what they think is right. And the father ends up siding with the younger brother because it's going to be more beneficial for them as the country, rather than the country in and of itself, as far as what Prince Nasir wanted to do with the country.
Yes. Yeah, and I do like that. Principally because of the performance of Alexander Siddig. I just like him so much. And I liked him on Deep Space Nine.
Who is he in Deep Space Nine?
What? He's the Doctor.
I never really watched that show. So
please.
But he is great here. You're right. He brings I think a lot of these characters have this world weariness. Matt Damon certainly has it. George Clooney has it. I think Alexander Siddig definitely has it here as this prince who is really the one who can kind of see what needs to be done in order to make his country move in the right direction, even though it's not the direction that his father and his brother are going to take it. And it's very sad, and it leads to his execution at the end because of that, which is heartbreaking, that this is how the mentalities think. And this is what the United States would go to, this is the lengths they would go to in order to ensure their control over the oil, rather than this country actually controlling its own oil. And then the other father-son story is really kind of the tragic one of the father with his young son, the Pakistani family, who are workers at the field, and how his son just is frustrated with the situation that they're in and ends up becoming a follower of this terrorist group. And although it doesn't seem terrorist initially, but they're just very, very much more in line with following the preachings of Allah and all of that. But then he kind of ends up in this little sect that ends up kind of leading to he ends up kind of going off in this terrorist route and seeing that is the way that he is meant to go. And it's his father seems very clueless as the few times that we see his father. And it's again a very heartbreaking moment when that son comes and sees his father at that soccer game and goes and gives him a hug. Because we know what's going to be happening, even though his father doesn't. And that last little wave that they give to each other, it's just very sad. All of these father-son relationships do have quite a bit of tragedy to them.
I do. I love that last bit because you get the wisdom of the father, which is, we just need to play some soccer. I know a lot. I've been around a long time, kind of a thing, and I'm going to play some soccer now. And and the converse is the ego of youth running off to do something in the name of fundamentalism. And the film is also an interesting commentary on the breadth of fundamentalism. You know, we have it's pretty easy for us to talk about fundamentalism on this, from the perspective of terrorism. We can see that, but what this film I think really shows is there is a great deal of fundamentalism, corporate fundamentalism at work, and when you see them on the same scale in a film like this, it I think makes an interesting paints an interesting picture.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. Their symbolic garb is certainly different, but don't we have some similar intent? So,
it's the corporate fundamentalism.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's scary, I think, all the way around. I'm glad you brought that up because I think it's interestingly sort of a sociological statement that I group the father-son relationships as the sort of American domestic father-son relationships and the Middle Eastern father-son relationships. Like my trinity sort of stands as a group. That's how I see it in my head. And I hadn't even gotten to the other two, which are easily, as tragic. Mm-hmm. So that's on me.
Yep. That's on you, man.
I'm a dope. That Alexander Siddig, he's in season 5 of Game of Thrones.
Oh, is he really?
Yes, he is. Man, I can't wait for Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I need to. I can't wait to finally get to watch season 4. Soon.
We still can't be friends.
At least I'm catching up. Come on.
I know.
Give me that.
All right.
Give me that.
You can have it. Okay, so shall we talk just a little bit about anything about the production? Do we have any more actors we want to talk about, or can we move on from that?
This is one of those films that, God, you look around and everybody, it's like, oh, hey, you have a day off? Hey, come be in our movie.
I'm sure that's what it's like, too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was especially, hey, come be in our movie. Fly all the way over here to Morocco to be in our movie for a day. Like Viola Davis pops up in it. Mark Strong pops up in it. I just,
Mark Strong is crazy.
Yeah, he is frightening in this.
Oh.
This is, I was, pretty disturbed by the big scene with him. It's as easy as it is to be. Yeah.
So the big scene is Clooney thinks that Mark Strong's character is a thug on his side of the spy game, and he actually tells Mark Strong, gives him an assignment to go, take the Emir and drug him and put him in a car and wreck it. And instead, it turns out Strong has changed sides. And so Strong immediately goes out and hires 3 guys to go capture Clooney and take him and tape him all to a chair and then yell at him a little bit and pull out his fingernails and then punch him real hard in the face a bunch of times. And really, I think I blacked out at the pulling out all the fingernails. That was tough. That was really tough to watch.
That was tough. Nobody does that to Batman.
Nobody. It was brutal. It was so brutal. Which, he only got through like two fingers, right?
Two fingers, and then he started beating him up, and then he was going to cut his throat until the head of the Hezbollah comes in because this was not a sanctioned attack or whatever.
Yeah, that was a tough one. So that was definitely a high point in the film in terms of general pulling me out of my snooze.
Well, good.
That was a little rush.
A little bit, yeah.
So that was Mark Strong.
Yeah, Mark Strong. William Hurt pops up for a scene.
Yes.
Tim Blake Nelson is in there as one of the Texan. I can't remember what he is. If he's like a political, somehow tied into the political side of this merger, and ends up being one of the scapegoats that they pull in order to actually make this merger happen.
Yes.
It's Jamie Sheridan is in it. It's just one of those films where everybody seems to be in it except Tom Hanks. It's unfortunate. And actually, Harrison Ford was actually asked to be in it by Gaghan, who wanted him to play. I think he was going to have him play the Bob Barnes role that Clooney ended up playing. And oddly enough, he turned it down, and then it went to Clooney. And Harrison Ford had also, when Traffic was being made, he had been offered to play the Michael Douglas role, and he turned that one down as well. And later, Harrison Ford ended up saying about this, he said, "I didn't feel strongly enough about the truth of the material, and I think I made a mistake," which I would agree with. Because Harrison Ford could stand to be in some good movies from time to time.
Yeah, he had a kind of a string of troublesome films.
Is still having a string since the late 90s, perhaps. Has he been in a good film?
Now.
Oh. I really have a hard time thinking of many good Harrison Ford films recently.
Really? Do I have a hard time with that?
I don't know.
I'm just thinking.
You?
I mean, you know, I definitely know there were some grim ones, but I'm excited about Age of Adeline coming up. It's too bad he was in The Expendables. That was sort of a sign that he's given up.
Well. Yes.
42. Didn't you like him in 42?
Actually, I take that back. I did like him in 42. I liked him in 42 more than I liked the movie. I think the movie just felt a little lackluster, but I thought it was nice to see him actually doing something different. So I will give you that.
But it was after, because I liked Air Force One, right? And so there you go with the late 90s. And then 6 Days, 7 Nights happened, and like dominoes, every film he did was a piece of crap. Everything. Yeah. 6 Days, 7 Nights, Random Hearts, What Lies Beneath, K9 the Widowmaker, Hollywood Homicide, Firewall, God. And then Crystal Skull.
That's unfortunate.
Oh, it's been a long slog. That was 10 years of not good films.
I will say, actually, What Lies Beneath, as stereotypical as a lot of it ended up being, I will say it was actually quite a fun thriller. So I will.
Did you have fun with that one? I didn't have all that much fun with that one. What I like about that one is that Clark Gregg wrote the screenplay, and I'm a big fan of Clark Gregg.
Well, and I really, really, really love the filmmaking style that Zemeckis does in that film. I really enjoyed that quite a bit.
I don't remember it enough to comment on it.
And it's pretty spectacular, I think. K-19, that's one I feel like I should watch again, even though I don't think that I liked it. I just can't remember it very well.
It's one of those where he was Russian.
I know he had
Why
that terrible
didn't they get a Russian?
But
there are great Russian actors.
Right, I know. But Catherine Bigelow, I mean, we did our whole series on her, and I feel like I need to give it another shot.
I'm gonna take that off your plate. You don't need to. There are better movies.
Okay, fine. But yeah, he really hasn't done a whole lot.
No.
Poor guy.
No. All right, fine.
Maybe that's why he's grumpy all the time.
Okay. So back to this film. My goodness. What else do you want to talk about?
Well, I already mentioned the editing. I think that the editing of this, was really efficient. It was it was done in a way where there was just no fluff. And I already have said that I liked that. I think Tim Squires, working with Gaghan, did a very brilliant job of the way they cut this together. I also really liked the way that Robert Elswit shot it. I think it was in the style of that sparse documentary-ish sort of look. I think it comes across looking that sort of way, kind of that gritty, realistic sort of look. It works really well. They didn't play any games with this one like they did with Traffic, where they kind of did different color coding for each of the different stories. So you could easily tell, oh, it's yellowish again, so it must be Mexico. Oh, it's bluish again, it must be Washington, D.C. They made that very obvious in Traffic. They didn't do that here. And I personally didn't think they needed to. I found it pretty easy to follow as things jumped around. But what do you think of the cinematography?
I agree with you on the cinematography. I thought it was beautiful, and I think the portrayal of the desert, particularly the Middle East stuff, I really enjoyed. I really felt sort of like I was there, particularly in Clooney's segments as he's, working his way back into Beirut. I think they did a wonderful job of capturing sort of the compression of these sort of villages and the city, and then the incredible expanse of the desert when they're out there, training the hawks or the falcons. I thought that was just a really lovely. I'm on the fence on the editing. I think you're right. I mean, in terms of what they did, but the efficiency of it, I think detracts from the ability to follow the film cleanly, and that may be a challenge that I had with it, that it was almost too efficient, and didn't have quite enough breathing room. And even at 2 hours and 10 minutes, I could have used the film to be a little longer, to give me a little bit more breathing room to get the feel of each of these individual stories more thoroughly. And I think that's an editorial issue.
Well, yeah, editorial and storytelling. I think that hand in hand, those are things that like I said, I think it worked for me, but I agree that it, I think, did create a problem for a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of people that are less than you. Is that where we're going?
No. Oh man,
goodness. All right, what else?
Alexandra Desplat did the score for this. It's a very effective score in the context of the film. I don't know if it's the sort of score that you sit and listen to on its own, but I think it works really well for the film.
Yeah, I do too. It's one of those, it's not like I can't place it right now.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get it in my head. And usually I feel like I can, when I just look at a poster or something, I can kind of remember it, and I can't really place it right now. So I don't know what that means.
Well, it's again, I think it's one of those ones that you hear it and it works, like I said, in context of the film. But yeah, outside of it, it's like I can't place it either.
Yeah.
Speaking of music, I do find it interesting that this film actually starts with the call to prayer over the logo, which I think is that something. I don't know. I don't know if there were back channel conversations about whether that is something that Warner Brothers was comfortable with or not, but I did find it interesting that you start with that Islamic call to prayer under the logo in potentially a rather
divisive,
politically divisive film. Yeah.
Yeah, although interestingly, I think that's a good pull on talking about the credits. I think the credits are actually very effective, the opening credits, and particularly driven by the sound, but it leads us right into the world. You talk about world building. It leads us right into it very, very quickly as we get into this initial kind of arms deal, which is a very striking opening as we see the arms deal, and it turns out it's an assassination.
Right.
It's very effective. Grim.
Which really kind of frightens me, because it's like they're doing this arms deal with this weapon, with like a anti whatever it is weapon, that when they blow it up, it's like I don't know, it seems like that as part of the explosion, it seems like that would really make it a much bigger explosion. And maybe that's just me, because I mean, but the terrorist who takes the other one, right, and Mohammed Sheikh Agiza,
right.
When he's talking to his new recruits about the tip of it, he's like, when it hits, it shoots molten copper into the core of the ship and melts everything inside. It's like, that is one heck of an explosion, you know, the way that he was portraying it. And it's like, that's the exact same weapon that Clooney blew up in that vehicle. It seems like it would have just been much more of an intense explosion. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't know my weapons. But
oh, come on, Andy. I think they actually, and just a slight pivot, I think you go to the actual explosion at the end that we don't see. I thought this was a really nice touch, as right as the boat with the two, the suicide bombing teens are on the boat, on their little speedboat, and they've got this missile or this weapon right at the head of the boat, stern, bow of the boat. Mm-hmm. I do a lot of boating.
As do I.
And they're heading
you with your boating, me with my weapons.
Straight into the starboard side of the tanker ship. And right at the moment of impact, they go to a straight white screen. And I thought that was a really effective way to kind of visually demonstrate the explosion without having to worry about the effect.
Yeah, and I agree. And I also like that there's no point in the film that dwells on that moment. Like, you don't get news stories about that. You don't get follow-up through the other political channels about that. You just know that it's a big mess for all the people that you've been watching over the course of the film, because it, as we've learned, it ties all of these webs together. And you know that that's going to be a big impact on all of their lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree. So,
yeah,
that's what I have to say about that.
Excellent.
All
Good stuff.
What do you want to do now?
Oh, let's talk numbers.
How'd they do? They did pretty well.
It did pretty well. I mean, this is a film. It came out right at the end of the year. It kind of trying to get into the Oscar race, and it did a little bit. We've already mentioned that Clooney won an Oscar for it, and it also was nominated for Best Original Screenplay. It didn't win, but because of kind of that period of time that it was released, it had that kind of momentum going for it. I mean, it cost $50 million to make this film. This is a film that Gaghan was reported to have asked Warner Brothers to have an unlimited budget to go and do research and an unlimited time frame to just go do research around the world, which sounds awfully nice. And I'm assuming that's built into that $50 million. But, he went off for a couple of months with Bob Baer and traveled. I mean, he actually went through a situation like what Clooney goes through to meet the head of the Hezbollah, where he's driving and they stop and they put him in another car and put a bag over his head and all this. Rather intense stuff that Gaghan went through to research this film. Really interesting stories. There's a fantastic podcast on Jeff Goldsmith back when he was with Creative Screenwriting, where he talks about some of his experiences, and it's rather terrifying. But but $50 million is what the film cost. They had another $22 million to market it. So all told, it was $72 million in today's dollars. That's about $85.7 million. And then domestically, it ended up earning about $50.8 million, and internationally about $43 million. So it ended up earning adjusted about $111.8 million. So it came out ahead. Adjusted profit per finished minute was about $207.5 thousand. So it's not at the top of our heap for sure, but for a political complicated film, I'd say it did pretty good for itself.
I think it did. That's more than I expected.
Yeah.
More dollars than I expected. I would have lost that bet. I say we rank it. Oh, God.
All right, let's do it.
How are we going to do this? Head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel, and you can see our stack ranking of all the films that we've talked about on this very show. And let's see, is this one going to break? I don't know. You're pretty excited about it. I'm gonna say 75.
Okay, well, let's see where it goes.
I think just because we're going to be playing so many of the odds, I know you're going to lose some.
It'll be a tricky one to see. We'll see. All right. Well, let's start with Syriana. Oh, there's some Clooney on Clooney action here. Syriana or Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
I would say Syriana, but I'm going to give you Oh Brother because it certainly is an easier film to watch.
I know you're going to want me to give up something big later. I know you're stacking this one, you big dummy.
We'll see. Jerk. Syriana or The Sandlot? I would say Syriana.
Oh, God, I would say Syriana.
Okay.
And I liked The Sandlot, but you're right. I'm going to give you Syriana on this.
Syriana or Pale Rider?
Pale Rider.
I would say Syriana on this one.
Okay. How much would you say, Syriana? What do you think about this? I mean, as opposed to rock, paper, scissors as a first try, is this 1 to 10 thing? Are you 1 being all the way yours, 10 being all the way mine?
I mean, I really enjoy Pale Rider. I think it's a strong film, but I would much rather watch The Outlaw Josie Wales of Eastwood's westerns. Pale Rider is one I do enjoy, but it's not one I would return to as often. Syriana, I find a much more engrossing story. I enjoy the political context of it. I enjoy the globe-trotting aspect of the film and how it really feels like a very interesting look at so many things going on in our world and how everything's interconnected.
I'm going to give this one to you because you have such a well thought out case, and my case is I would pick Pale Rider because I don't want to watch Syriana, which I even admit that doesn't hold up.
It's pretty funny though. comedy element goes to you, though.
Goes straight to me.
I'll give you that.
All right.
All right. Syriana or When Harry Met Sally?
When Harry Met Sally.
I'll say When Harry Met Sally.
Oh, look at that.
Look at that. I agree. Syriana or the Maltese Falcon?
I'm going to say the Maltese Falcon.
I actually am too. Something about the... I know. But, it's a classic.
Oh, it's a classic. All right.
Syriana or Driving Miss Daisy?
Driving Miss Daisy.
And I would say Syriana.
Now, see, I would say Driving Miss Daisy strictly because of the performances. I really, really enjoy the sort of intimacy of their relationship and what the film represents as a cultural statement of the time. I thought it was just a delightful adaptation. And it absolutely destroys Syriana on the complexity simplicity scale. Destroys, it's crushing.
Oh, that's pretty true. Yeah, very big extremes here between complexity and simplicity.
Are we going to need to rock, paper this one?
No. I'm going to give you Driving Miss Daisy because I think you're right. The power that comes through in that film because of the development of those two characters, I think, is pretty powerful. I would still pick Syriana, but I'm going to give you Driving Miss Daisy because you sold me on it.
You're a generous man.
I'm a giver.
You're a giver.
Syriana or 500 Days of Summer?
Sort of curious where you're going to land on this.
I am actually going to go 500 Days of Summer because I find the just everything about it so refreshing and invigorating in the storytelling style that they went with to tell that story. It's really one of the most magical romantic comedies I've seen.
And I'm going to say 500 Days of Summer because Singing in the Park.
With a little animated bird on his shoulder. Oh, dear. Syriana or Field of Dreams?
Oh, God. This is the worst choice ever.
Oh, that's terrible. That is terrible.
Why, God, do you do this to me?
Oh, man.
Oh, for crying out loud.
I'm going to say Field of Dreams because of my fan love for the film.
I believe this is the one where we're going to split the other way.
Excellent. You're going to go with Syriana, huh?
I'm going to go with Syriana because no Kevin Costner. Because it turns out if you build it, they don't always come.
It is funny.
Sometimes they just blow stuff up.
Although Syriana does have William Hurt, who I sometimes find to be my Kevin Costner.
You take that back.
It's true. It is true.
Oh, I just picked my guilty pleasure.
Oh, goody.
Twice.
What could that be?
What are you gonna do here?
I'm gonna go Syriana.
All right.
And that puts it at 106 out of 172.
Wow.
Top 75.
Still, it's probably in good company, right? What's right around 100 right now?
I mean, from 100, Midnight Run, The Maltese Falcon. What is this? Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, Indiana Jones, The Temple of Doom, Driving Miss Daisy, 500 Days of Summer, Syriana, Field of Dreams, Lady Killers, Pale Rider, Fistful of Dollars. So it's in good company there.
Yeah, it's in good company. Fine company. All right.
Like I always say, we've talked about a lot of really good movies.
We really have, except for one that's terrible. Yes. Hey, can I have a plug?
Oh, sure.
I have a plug for somebody else. Have you? Do you remember this fellow named Joel Micah Harris?
I do.
Harris. He's. You may have seen the work of Joel Micah. You may have worn the work of Joel Micah Harris on the hit 2014 commemorative Next Reel T-shirt. He did the illustration on that shirt. And Joel Harris and his friend Adam Lanter have a podcast now. They've started a podcast, and I'm plugging it because I love the concept of it. And they're very intelligent pop culture nerds. It is called If You Like, and it is available at the If You Like podcast, or you can search for it in iTunes, and they only have 3 episodes out. The whole concept behind If You Like is they call themselves the human recommendation engine. So they take some property, whether it's a book or a movie or a TV show, and they say, if you like this, here are like 6 other things that you probably haven't heard of but would also like. And why? And I just love that concept. So I have listened to the first 3 they did. If you like Tombstone, if you like The Hunger Games, and if you like The Walking Dead, and the next 3 episodes coming up, they've got Breaking Bad, Shawshank Redemption, and Cabin in the Woods. And those have not been released yet, but they're on the way. And they're getting better. They've got new mics coming in. They're doing new sound stuff. But it's a very clever concept, and I really like how they put it together. So congratulations to Joel and Adam, and best of luck on their show because it's awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah. So it's If You Like Podcast. Go check that out.
Nice.
Tell them the Next Reel sent you.
There you go.
I think that's all we have to say. I gotta go to bed.
All right. I'm gonna go cavort with some spies. My review is very brief. I picked a 5-star review, and there's actually plenty of glowing reviews that people have. This is a funny movie, though. You look at the reviews, there's a lot of really brief reviews, both 1-star, 5-star, kind of the whole gamut. They're very brief. And this was, I just don't know what David completely means, but he gave it 5 stars. He said, it was okay and on time.
What? What is that?
Thank you, David.
Wow.
On time. Not quite sure what that means.
I don't know what that means at all. Like the shipping was on time? Like he ordered a DVD and it came on time?
Maybe.
Wow.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. But he gave it 5 stars. Well, and he said it was okay.
I have a 1-star, and this is from a fellow in my own fair hometown, Portland, Oregon, from this time last year, February 22nd, 2014. It says, wow, what a mess. This thing is a colossal failure, a tremendously ambitious enterprise that falls flat on its face. The fault, I think, lies in the direction. The disparate elements of the story are presented in such a scattershot fashion that it's virtually impossible to follow. What was apparently intended to be arty, multi-sided portrait of the nature of the world oil industry and its impact on people throughout the world turns into a half-assed mishmash of spy melodrama, tale of political intrigue, and action thriller. I suppose the movie was deliberately constructed to be hard to follow, presumably to draw the audience in and focus on the message, which seems to be that the world's hunger for oil is corroding the world from top to bottom. All well and good, but when every scene leaves you scratching your head as to what the hell just happened and why, you begin to suspect that the fault is not your own lack of perspicuity, but the director's inability to master the threads of his narrative.
Wow, you did like a real one.
I did. Do you know what? Because I've done really, really crappy ones for the last ever. I thought this one actually, this is one that isn't "don't bother" or terrible or bleh.
Or it was okay and on time.
It was okay and on time, but it represents sort of what I feel, except with the exception of the last 20 minutes. There you go. So way to go, fellow Portlandian.
You wrote that, didn't you?
Way to go, me. I mean, what?
Andy, it is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
You are telling me. Producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you. and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
I love The Next Reel Season 4. Do you know why?
I don't. Why?
Because we got to talk about my favorite movie, Terry Gilliam's Brazil.
That's not even an adaptation.
No, but it was such a great part of our great Terry Gilliam series, and a few others in that series were adaptations, like The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, adapted from Raspi's stories, and La Jetée, which inspired 12 Monkeys.
Oh, right. And for our Man with No Name trilogy, we saw how Sergio Leone's A Fistful of Dollars was basically stolen from Kurosawa's Yojimbo.
We added Labor Day to our Jason Reitman series, adapted from Joyce Maynard's novel.
Oof, there's one we'll always regret.
Our big Stephen King series covered adaptations like The Shining, Cujo, Christine, and Stand By Me, great horror and coming-of-age tales.
Another Coen Brothers adaptation, too. We got to talk about how they turned Homer's The Odyssey into Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou?
For our holiday series, we did The Bishop's Wife and The Poseidon Adventure.
And who could forget seeing Alec Guinness in the adaptation of Kind Hearts and Coronets during our series dedicated to him.
We really need to do more of his films.
Truly.
We had our first film noir series with classics like Double Indemnity, Detour, and Out of the Past.
And our black and white cinematography of James Wong Howe series with The Thin Man, Sweet Smell of Success, Seconds, and King's Row. So many adaptations.
Oh, you're not kidding. Dive deeper into these originals and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book you buy helps support our show.
Get the full list at thenextreel.com/originals and start reading today.